Would you turn to page 14? Page 14. In this session, we want to rehabilitate the word chastity. To rehabilitate it. Why does it need to be rehabilitated? Because in the modern world, chastity has become a kind of oppressive thing, something very negative. So we need to restore the true meaning of this word. Let's look at the first paragraph there on page 14. Chastity comes from the Latin castus, which means pure. Sadly, sexual purity is often confused with Puritanism. What is Puritanism? This is Puritanism. We see this, we get afraid of it, so we throw it away. And we think spirit good, body bad. That's Puritanism. Throwing that away is not Christian purity. It is the diabolic mockery of Christian purity called Puritanism. Puritanism is afraid of the body and sexuality. Puritanism thinks the body and sexuality is just evil in itself. No. Do not give the devil his own clay. The serious error of Puritanism is that it gives the devil his own clay. And it doesn't allow the crumpled painting to be uncrumpled. Chastity uncrumples the painting. Look at the first bullet there. Chastity is the virtue that safeguards love. But because chastity demands a lot of us, the culture at large has come to resent chastity, even thinking chastity is unhealthy. No, chastity is what makes sexual desire something constructive and beautiful, rather than destructive and ugly. Chastity is the virtue that allows us to rediscover the original, beautiful, wonderful, glorious plan of God for making us male and female. It helps us to recover something, at least something, of that original nakedness without shame. Why do we resent chastity? We actually resent that virtue. Why? Because what chastity demands of us is difficult. It's a lot easier if we all start out here. It's a lot easier just to indulge in our disordered desires. And it's also a lot easier to throw it all away and think it's all bad. Those are both cop-outs. Those are both getting ourselves off the hook, so to speak. I don't know if you have that expression in Portuguese, to get yourself off the hook. Does that make sense in Portuguese? It means I don't have to do the hard thing. What's the hard thing? The hard thing is to let God's light into these dark, twisted places in our lives so that He can restore us. And so John Paul II tells us that the real sin behind our resentment of chastity, the real sin is sloth. What is sloth, or acedia, depending on how you pronounce it? Sloth is resentment that doing the right thing, doing the good thing is difficult. Maybe you want to be a concert pianist, but you don't like taking piano lessons, so you give it up. Forget that, that's just too much work. Okay, well, there's no sin in saying, I don't want to take piano lessons, because no one is obligated to play the piano, right? But we are all obligated to love. And so we have to take piano lessons in that sense. Do you know what lust is? If we go with this image of becoming a musician, lust is just banging on the piano, making meaningless noise. That's lust. Anyone can bang on the piano and make meaningless noise. But is that going to lift your soul to the heavens? No, it's going to grate against your soul. A concert pianist can walk up to a piano and spontaneously make beautiful music that lifts our hearts to the heavens. But we know that behind the spontaneity of that concert pianist is a lifetime of hard work, discipline, sacrifice, training of his mind and his muscles so that he can make that beautiful music seem effortless. It's a great analogy for chastity. Chastity takes hard work. We have to train our mind. We have to train our bodies. But as we embrace that sacrifice and that discipline, do you know what happens? We start to make beautiful music. And our souls and our bodies get lifted to the heavens. This is the gift of chastity. Now I want you to imagine that you are an artist, a sculptor to be exact. It's 500 years ago, and the Catholic Church is in the midst of constructing the new St. Peter's Basilica. And the Pope has ordered that in the new St. Peter's Basilica, if you walk into St. Peter's and the high altar is this direction, up in the nave, in the arches of the nave, there are all these sculptures that depict the various Christian virtues. And you have been chosen by the Pope to sculpt the virtue of chastity. What would you sculpt? What would you sculpt? What would you design? How would you make visible in a sculpture the virtue of chastity? I don't know who the artist was, but 500 years ago, if we could bring up number 14, this is what was sculpted. The Catholic Church wants the entire world to understand that this is a visual depiction of the virtue of chastity. Now I know what many of you are looking at, especially the guys. You're probably zooming in on the unicorn spoof right here. Right? No? I know, many of you are thinking, chastity? That's a bare-breasted woman. How could that be chastity? Now notice, only one of her breasts is exposed. The other one is veiled. Every detail of this sculpture is a work of genius. Why is one breast exposed and one veiled? Because true chastity knows both how to honor the body when it is exposed, and it knows when we need to veil the body so it doesn't get violated. It knows how to honor both. But there's much more to the symbolism here. There's much more to the symbolism. Could we go to number 14 or 15, please? Number 15. These are two depictions, also in St. Peter's Basilica, of the virtue of Christian love or charity. The Church, in her religious art, knows no better image of Christian love than a nursing mother. Here, obviously, we have a baby at the breast. But here, another depiction of the same virtue, we have a woman expressing her milk. And the Church wants us to understand that this is Christian love. Why? What is Christian love? This is my body given for you. That's what a woman's breast does. That's what a woman's breast is. Did you know that the biological function of the mammary gland, of the breast, is to transform blood into food? Catholic bells for you, I don't know what will. It's Eucharistic. It's Eucharistic. And this is why Satan is after a woman's body, to pornify what God wants to glorify. God wants to glorify woman's body. Satan wants to pornify woman's body. This is not a pornographic image. This is a sacred image. This is a holy image. And now we can understand what's going on here. At the very center of the virtue of chastity is Christian love. Christian love. And love, authentic Christian love, is what unites properly the masculine and the feminine. Look at the two symbols in love's hands. So the woman is Christian love. Look at the two symbols in her hands. One is a feminine symbol and one is a masculine symbol. Which is which? Do I need to explain that the unicorn is a masculine symbol? Is it obvious enough? Do I need to explain that the flower is a feminine symbol? That should be obvious enough. And look at the trajectory. What is the unicorn looking at? The unicorn is not looking at her, he's looking at the rose. And look how the rose is tilted towards the unicorn. What is Christian love doing? Christian love is uniting the masculine and the feminine. Now there's much more going on. The layers of the symbols here are so profound. The unicorn is a symbol in the Christian tradition. The unicorn is a symbol of Christ. And there was this folklore that surrounded the unicorn, that the wild and passionate energy of the unicorn, look at the strength and energy here. Look at the strain in the muscles in the neck. Look at the hoof. He's ready to go, man. He is ready to go. Eros, erotic passion, has a wild, strong, passionate energy about it. But at the same time, erotic desire, properly lived, is also delicate and fragile, like a flower. It's something powerful and it's something delicate at the same time. In all of us. I'm not just saying it's delicate in women and it's powerful in men. It's delicate and powerful in both men and women. And within us, we have to experience Christian love uniting the flower and the unicorn. Now, part of the folklore around the unicorn is if you don't show the unicorn proper respect and reverence, he'll gore you with his horn. He'll kill you. But if you show the unicorn proper reverence, the horn of the unicorn becomes a horn of salvation. It's a biblical expression. The horn of salvation. So what's the message here? When erotic energy goes wild in the wrong direction, it will kill you. And it will kill others. But when we harness that energy by Christian love, it will save you. It will be your salvation. The very same thing that can kill you can save you if you open it to Christian love. The folklore also says that only a pure maiden, so now Christian love also becomes the pure maiden. Only a pure maiden can tame the wild energies of the unicorn. But taming here does not mean that you break the energies of the unicorn. You don't try to steal the energies of the unicorn or suffocate the energies of the unicorn. You direct them in the right direction. You learn how to master the energies of the unicorn. And this is a common theme in all kinds of cultures. That to come of age, to pass through puberty and come of age means that you have learned how to, shall we say, ride the stallion. But the stallion is going to throw you. But you got to keep trying. You got to keep trying. And I have a little video clip here for you of a famous movie that came out when I was a teenager called The Black Stallion. Do you know about the movie The Black Stallion here in Brazil? Yes? No?
Yes.
Well, here's the story. A boy who's right at the age of puberty, about 13. A boy at puberty is on a ship with his father, and there's a stallion, this wild horse on the ship, and there's a fire on the ship, and the ship sinks. And the boy swims to shore and finds out, actually the horse gets him to shore, and now the boy is stranded on this island, and he's learning how to ride the horse. I want you to pay careful attention. And I want you to look at this as an allegory of chastity. That the stallion represents sexual energy, eros, erotic desire. But notice, the only way he can mount the stallion is by going in the ocean. And that represents a certain cleansing, a certain baptism. And he never gives up. Even though when he gets thrown from the horse, he never gives up. He gets back on the horse. Until he learns how to ride the horse in a beautiful, liberating, free, and beautiful way. Let's take a look.
Fez muita bagunça? O filme Corcel mesmo, tem nada disso, né? Vai ver com os next time. Tumawag siya sa kasyudad. Precisa niya montado o cosa.
That's chastity, my brothers and sisters. It's so beautiful. It's so liberating. Our culture talks a big line about sexual liberation, sexual freedom. But what does our culture mean by sexual freedom? The culture means do whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, without ever saying no to your sexual desires. Hold on. Is an alcoholic who never says no to his desire for alcohol, is this person free? Or is this person in chains? What our culture promotes as sexual freedom, if you give it an honest look, do you know what it amounts to? Sexual addiction. The culture has turned us into people who never say no to our inclinations and desires, and that puts us in chains. Guys, I'm going to ask the ladies another question. And I want you to pay attention one more time. Ladies, how many of you want to be in a relationship with a man who cannot say no to his sexual desires? Please raise your hand. I have asked hundreds of thousands of women that question around the world over the last 30 years, and never has a hand gone up. Guys, what do the ladies understand right away? We can get there, but it usually takes us a few more steps. Because if I ask the men, how many of you want to be in a relationship with a woman who can't say no to her sexual desires, we might be, I don't know, sounds kind of good initially. Whoa. We need maybe a few extra steps, but we could get there. But here's what the women understand right away. If a man cannot say no to his sexual desires, you're just an outlet. You're just one outlet among many outlets for him to indulge his uncontrollable desires. Put it this way. If you cannot say no to your sexual desires, your yes means nothing. If you cannot say no to your sexual desires, if you cannot control your own sexual desires, you will inevitably manipulate other people to gratify them. How do I know about this stuff? Because I read it in a book? Because the Pope told me so? No, because it's my own experience. It's my own experience. I dated a girl for 4 years, from the age of 16 to the age of 20. And she finally broke up with me after 4 years because she said, "You don't know how to love me." And she was right. I didn't know how to love her. And I didn't know how to love her because I was not in control of my sexual desires. And I sought to control her to gratify them. I knew how to push her buttons, so to speak, to get what I wanted. And she had had enough. Rightly so. Rightly so. She had had enough. Now, at the early stages of our relationship, I thought I was free. Because I had tossed off the oppressive chains of my Catholic upbringing, and I was indulging my sexual desires whenever I wanted. So long as I could get her to go along with it. I thought I was free. No, I was in chains. I couldn't say no. And I'll never forget when I realized I was in chains. You know, some of Catholic school teaching wore off on me. It had an impact. And I knew down in there, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be doing this. And I felt guilty. You know, it's good to feel guilty when you're doing things you shouldn't be doing. It's good. That's the proper response. So every once in a while, my conscience would kick in. And Lent was coming up, and I thought, okay, maybe we should give up sex for Lent. Now, you're supposed to give up sin all the time. Right? You don't just give up sin for Lent. You should be giving up sin all the time. Right?
Right.
But this is where I was at this stage of my journey. I was very immature. I was 18 years old. I was very immature, but I was trying. I wanted to try to set this right, and I said, let's give up sex for Lent. And she agreed. Guess how long I lasted? Any guesses? 1 week. Who said I could only last a week? Raise your hand. Who said I could only last a week? 1 week. That's all you're going to give me.
3 days.
One day? What do you think I am, an animal? Well, yeah, I was. I was behaving like one anyway. I lasted 3 days. We gave up sex on Wednesday, and by Saturday I was like, can we give up chocolate instead? I know it's funny from one angle, but from another angle, this is not funny at all. This is an absolute tragedy, because I was not free. I could not say no. And I wounded this girl deeply. Are we ready to stop rationalizing our behavior and fall on our knees and say, God, please help me. Help me to love. Help me to love. Help me to love. Open my eyes, Lord. I'm so blind. Open my eyes. I want to see. Open my ears. I want to hear your love song. Teach me to dance to your love song. We must be willing to go through a deep, thorough, inner purification here. All of us. Do you know how John Paul II describes hell? Hell, he says, is the destiny of those who refuse to allow themselves to be purified. Let me say that again. Hell is the destiny reserved for those who refuse to allow themselves to be purified. Let him in. Let him in. Let him in. Let him in. He stands at the door and he knocks. He will never barge into your heart. He will never barge into your heart. He waits for us to open to him. Open to me, my love, my dove, my perfect one. Open to me. Open to me, my sister, my bride. Open to me. Open to me. Open all the places of your heart to him. All the scary places, all the dark corners, open them to him. All the painful memories, the first time you were exposed to pornography, the first time you had a sexual experience, the first time somebody used you as an object, the first time you used somebody as an object. Open all these memories to Jesus. Let him come in. He will not shame you. Can we bring up 33, please, Juan? He will not shame you. He will not scold you. He will meet you where you are and pour oil on wounds. He's the Good Samaritan. And we are all the guy who got beat up and left for dead in the side of the road. All of us. Look at quote 1D. Lust impels people very powerfully towards sexual intercourse. But if this grows out of nothing more than lust, it does not unite a man and a woman as persons, and it is not genuine love. On the contrary, sexual activity which grows out of lust and nothing more is a negation of love. Even though it evokes loving and erotically charged feelings and sensual affections. But for true love to be built up, the raw material of love must be shaped by the appropriate creative activity of the will. We must choose never to treat another person as an object for our pleasure. That's an act of the will. Without chastity, the raw material of love gets squandered. 1E. Lust involves a consistent tendency to see persons as objects of potential enjoyment, whereas the correct way to see and desire a person is through the medium of his or her value as a person. We should not think of this manner of seeing and desiring as asexual, as blind to the value of the body and sex. It is simply that the value of the body and sex must be correctly integrated with love of the person. Love in the proper and full sense of the word. Now, we can often think here, wouldn't it be great if I could just follow my passions and desires wherever they led me? Well, I did that and it led to misery. That's what the culture is doing, and it's leading to misery. Look at quote 1F. Because of our fallen inclination to lust, it is not altogether safe to put our trust in our sensual and affective reactions. And there's a certain hardship in this, since we would all like simply to be able to follow our spontaneous inclinations. We all must grow in practicing the virtue of self-mastery. In other words, we must take piano lessons, and we have to learn to discipline our muscles so that we can make beautiful music. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Christopher, how am I ever? I've never heard any of this. This is all new to me. It's interesting to me. I'm learning some things. But how am I ever going to make beautiful music? I've been banging on the piano my whole life. Well, let's just start right here. Stop banging on the piano. You are not an animal. You can gain control of yourself and stop banging on the piano. Let's just start right there. And then you can take one finger, just one finger, and go bop, 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 bop. Ba 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 ba. Anybody with 2 minutes of instruction can do that. And that is a heck of a lot nicer than bang, 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 bang. And there's no parent on the planet, no good parents on the planet, who when you're learning how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb is going to say, why can't you play Beethoven? No, Mary Had a Little Lamb has its own beauty and charm. So start there and keep going. Keep going. Even if you get thrown off the horse, get back up and keep going. Keep going. Keep going. You can't tell me it's not worth fighting for. You can't tell me it's not worth dying for. It is. It's worth it, and it's possible. Turn to page 16. Could we bring up image number 16, please? This is what I want to look at now. We talked a little bit about this last night. But for those who weren't here, and for the rest of us, a little bit of a review, we have 3 choices with our erotic desires. 3 choices. Most people think we only have 2 choices. Most people think these are the only 2 choices right here. Indulge recklessly in all the pleasures of the world, or repress it all. If these are the only two choices, indulge recklessly in the pleasures of the world or repress, which one appears to be more holy? Which one appears to be more holy? Well, this guy appears to be holier than this guy. And this is why so many Christians confuse holiness with repression. We confuse holiness with, I'm not going to think about that, I'm not going to think about that, I'm not going to think about that. And John Paul II says this is very dangerous if that's our approach. Look at 1K on page 16. Chastity is not a blind inhibition of physical impulses, such that the values of the body and sex are pushed down into the subconscious, where they await an opportunity to explode. If chastity is practiced only in this way, it does indeed create the danger of such explosions. In other words, this guy is eventually going to become this guy. Because you can only hold that energy in for so long before it just vomits out. Thank you. No. This is not chastity. Rather, the essence of chastity consists in quickness to affirm the value of the person in every situation, and in raising to the personal level all reactions to the value of the body and sex. Chastity is not a matter of annihilating sexual values. Rather, it's a matter of sustained, long-term integration. The value of the body and sex must be implanted into the value of the person. We must learn how to redirect our sexual energies towards the heights of the dignity of the person, and eventually even the very heights of heaven itself. Only one person up here is making beautiful music. This person's banging on the keyboard. This person thinks the piano is evil and never goes near it. And this person's making beautiful music. So, which of these guys is closer to this guy? If we look at the biblical figures, this approach represents the Pharisees. This approach represents the prostitutes, the tax collectors, the sinners. Who came running to Jesus first? The Pharisees or the prostitutes and the tax collectors? St. Augustine said this. At least it's attributed to St. Augustine. Those who are lost in their passions are less lost than those who have lost their passions. Those who are lost in their passions. This guy is lost in his passions. But he's less lost than the guy who has lost his passions. Why? Because he still feels the burn in the belly. He still feels the burn in the belly. Whoa! Yeah! He still feels it. He's aiming it in the wrong direction, but he feels it. He feels the hunger. And Christianity is for hungry people. Christianity is for hungry people. The great sinners and the great saints have a lot in common. What do they have in common? They feel the hunger. What's the difference between the great saints and the great sinners? The great sinners are aiming their hunger at the fast food, and the great saints are aiming their hunger at the wedding banquet of heaven. Now, all of us can be converted, right? This represents a guy named Saul, who was converted and became a saint named Paul. But his conversion is going to be different than his conversion. Because this guy has to start feeling his hunger, and that for this guy is very scary. Be not afraid, my brothers and sisters. Wherever you are here, be not afraid. This is really possible if we let God into our hearts. This is really possible. But we got to let him in. He stands at the door and he knocks. Now, over the next few days, over the next few weeks, I think you're going to start hearing that knocking at the door even louder and louder and louder. And if it's Jesus, let him in. Let him in. Let him in. Let him in. Be not afraid. Be not afraid. Be not afraid. And you also might, over the next few days, few weeks, you might experience some of the most intense sexual temptations you've ever had in your life. Why? Because there's an enemy, make no mistake, there's an enemy who does not like what you are learning today. And he's going to be after you to keep you in your chains. If you've been doing this, he's going to send all kinds of temptations to keep doing this. If you've been doing this, he's going to send all kinds of temptations to keep doing this. He does not want any of us to do this. He does not want any of us to make beautiful music. But don't listen to him. Don't listen to his lies. Listen to the song of heaven. Listen to the love song coming to you from heaven. And dance. Okay. Let's go to the next page, page 17, and let's look at this heading. Shame, shamelessness, and modesty. Interesting heading. What do we mean by sexual shame? Look at quote 2a. 2a. Shame is a natural form of self-defense for the person against the danger of descending or being pushed into the position of an object for sexual use. What does that mean? It's very insightful. Why do we cover our bodies in this fallen world? And why were they naked without shame in the beginning? We talked about this a little bit earlier, but let's go a little deeper now. They were naked without shame because there was no reason to hide their bodies from each other because they had the proper reverence for each other. The way they experienced sexual desire was nothing but the desire to love in the image of God. And there's no shame in that. There is no shame in loving as God loves. Why does shame come into the picture? The very first result of original sin is that hiding. Why? Could we bring up number 27, please? Number 27. What's this all about? What's this all about? Please let this sink in and let it go deep, because it will change the way you see the whole world. We do not cover our bodies in this fallen world because our bodies are bad. That is a lie from hell. We cover our bodies in this fallen world because they're so good. And we feel an instinctive need to protect the goodness of the body from the degradation of lust. It's a self-defense mechanism. It's saying, don't look at me that way. I'm meant to be seen as a person, and you're only looking at me as a thing. Don't look at me that way. So in this sense, covering the body is a very good thing in a fallen world. It's a necessary thing in a fallen world. Otherwise, you're throwing yourself to the lions. And every culture on the planet, even those so-called primitive cultures, show some form of covering. Even, cultures where women's breasts are exposed, like in the Amazon, not far from here, you'll find cultures where women's breasts are exposed. I remember watching a documentary of a tribe in the Amazon, and the women went around virtually naked, but interestingly enough, whenever they sat down, they had no furniture. They would sit on the ground, but they would always tuck their leg in right over their genitals. That was the way women sat. And that was how that self-defense mechanism was played out in this culture. Interestingly enough, look what John Paul II says here in 2a. If we continue with 2a, go down a few lines. He says, the fact that primitive peoples sometimes live in partial or total nakedness cannot be simply identified with shamelessness or immodesty. On the contrary, for some primitive peoples, the concealment of parts of the body that were previously exposed can manifest a shamelessness inasmuch as this draws new attention to those parts of the body. What is he getting at here? This is very interesting. Sometimes missionaries, when they go to these primitive, so-called primitive peoples, they will impose Western values on these cultures. And they will kind of insist that the women cover their breasts. And what the women in these cultures have sometimes discovered is that when they covered their breasts, the men looked at their breasts even more than when they were uncovered, because it created a new fascination. That's what John Paul's getting at. So we cannot simply equate, as he says here in the final line of 2a, he says sexual modesty cannot then in any simple way be identified with the use of clothing, nor shameless behavior with its absence. Very interesting. He gives us a very, very balanced approach to understanding modesty. What is modesty? That's another word that needs to be rehabilitated. Modesty does not mean looking, I don't know how our faithful translators are going to translate this one, but in English we have this word frumpy. You know what frumpy means? Frumpy means you don't really care how you look. You don't keep yourself up well. You're kind of, so if someone were to look at you, they might not even be able to tell if you were a man or a woman because you're dressed in a frumpy way. That's not modesty. Modesty is not so much about the clothing we are wearing. Modesty flows from the heart. A modest woman and an immodest woman could wear the very same outfit, and for the modest woman it would be modest, and for the immodest woman it would be immodest, because the virtue flows from the heart, not so much what clothing you're wearing. Although, if you are wearing certain clothing with the express intention to arouse the lustful look in others, that is when you are guilty of immodesty in dress. Let me say that again. What is immodest in dress is when you are dressing in a way with the specific intention to arouse the lustful look of someone else. That's immodest. But look at what he says here. Look at 2D. 2D. He's so balanced and insightful in his analysis here. He says the accentuation of sexual values by dress is inevitable and is not necessarily incompatible with modesty. Immodesty in dress is that which deliberately displaces the value of the person with sexual values. The principle is simple, but its application depends upon the individual and on social customs. Furthermore, if we are to assess forms of dress, we have to start from the functions they serve. For example, it is not immodest to wear a swimsuit when one is swimming, but to wear it while out for a walk would be immodest. There are circumstances in which nakedness is not immodest. If someone takes advantage of such an occasion, it is only he who is guilty of shamelessness, not the other. Immodesty is present only when the aim of exposing the body is to arouse lust. This may be called depersonalization through sexual objectification. Both men and women can be guilty of immodesty here. But the goal, even if someone else is dressing immodestly, the goal is to learn to see that person as a person. And so I'll share this story. And then I'm going to bring Mike out to sing to us. There were two bishops walking out of a cathedral, right as a scantily clad prostitute was walking down the street, clearly dressed with the intention to arouse lust in men. So she's a prostitute. We know what she's trying to do, and that would be certainly immodest. One of the bishops immediately turned the other way. The other bishop looked intently at the woman. And the bishop who turned away said, "Brother Bishop, what are you doing? Shield your eyes." And when he turned around, the bishop had tears streaming down his face. And he lamented, "How tragic that such beauty is being sold to the lusts of men." Which one of these bishops was truly chaste in his heart? The one who looked or the one who looked away? It was the one who looked. He was truly pure in his heart. But if we ask the question, which of these bishops did the right thing? What's the answer?
Both of them.
Both. Both did the right thing. Because the one who looked away knew that if he did look, he would lust. But the other bishop had been through a longer journey into his own heart. And he had grown in learning how to make beautiful music. And when you are swimming in that beautiful music, when that beautiful music becomes the language of your heart, when you see or hear banging on the piano, it hurts you deeply and you want to weep. My brothers and sisters, true love ain't no easy thing to do. But if we go on the journey, the rewards are nothing short of eternal. Look at the bottom of page 16, the very bottom, the final line of quote 1n, where the Catechism tells us, Chastity is a promise of immortality. Of immortality. Because when our rocket engines get aimed at the stars and we launch, guess where we end up? In infinity and beyond. Sing it for us, Mike.